Yep.
Okay. Meeting is called to order for the Public Safety Commission. Call to order and roll call. Cynthia Green. Marcia Herndon. Pat Pitt.
Adam Brenneman, Eric Anderson, Eric Brown, Kevin Christ, Kevin Church.
Shane Wooten.
And our guests.
Mike.
Hi, welcome. You have the June 7th minutes, and I am open to any suggestions of change or correction.
I have one correction. I was present.
Oh,
June
Well.
7th, yeah, and I wasn't present either. So,
I don't take the minutes.
I was in spirit, but I wasn't there. Yeah.
And I read this earlier.
Okay. Are there any changes or additions additionally? If not, I hear a motion to approve.
I move that the minutes be approved as written.
Second. Approved and seconded. Are there any discussion? Vote all aye, nay. Motion passed. Okay. Now we have Marcia.
Good
You are up.
evening, everybody. You should have a double-sided page. I'm just trying to keep a consistent theme so we can kind of track what's going on in the city. The first page with all the little bubbles on it is kind of a easy, hopefully easy to follow. It's way easier than the full spreadsheet that I did. Woo! About kind of where's the state of crime in the city. Last time when I was updating this today, and looking at the June report, violent crime or persons crime was actually in the green, meaning that, you know, it had dropped. And I believe I told the group that we expected that to change going into busy months. It has. So violent crime or persons crime has unfortunately gone into the increasing, not by much, but it is, and we kind of expected that because we're entering the height of the summer. And the property is consistent, but overall, if you looked at where we were in June for overall crime versus where we are now, we were about 25, down 25% overall in crime in June when we talked. Now we're only around 17. So, and I knew that's partly driven by violent crime, but not hugely. I mean, these are not big changes. But with any change or any difference in the numbers, you're going to see those percentages change. Nothing too concerning. We have some hot spots that we're worried about. One particular is the skate park. Most of my people would probably just want to cement that thing in right now. We've had 2 gun incidents and stabbing there in the last about 2 months.
Oh my
One of which we got in a big pursuit with one of the suspects that ended up in a sweet home. So we're working on some ideas. If we have some more or increased issues, the guy who got stabbed will be okay. Then we might shut the park down for a little bit to try to get it under control.
Is that a city-owned facility?
Yeah, it's right next to the Cumberland Event Center.
Oh, I know where it is.
Yeah, it is. And the traction there is off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And so when the weather gets nice, we see an increase in activity there. So just kind of monitoring it. Graffiti and all our parks is off the charts. So we're trying to figure out how to deal with that. We are really good about having a set of volunteers in the city that gets on it pretty quick. I come in via Grand Prairie to Waverly every day for work, and that bathroom gets tagged at least once every other week, and it's off by and covered within a couple of days at the most. So, so we tend to stay on top of that. Again, nothing majorly Concerning here, in looking at the numbers, although our sex crime, you'll see that's a big jump, almost double. And that is a little bit concerning. Don't really know how to explain it other than maybe the reporting is increased. So on the flip side, here's where the bad news. I'm very concerned about these numbers. So when we talked in June, our OD deaths, so in June, our OD deaths were at 5. Now we're at 11. And we're already at the entirety of 2022 numbers. The ratio of deaths to calls is much higher in 2023. As you can see, we're just blowing the lid off in Narcan usage. So that's very concerning. The other thing too is we just got a talks back on one of our folks. There's 2 things here. It's killing a lot of our homeless people right now. We're working very closely with Chance. I actually have a list of individuals we know are homeless and have had multiple overdoses, and so Chance is proactively trying to intervene on those cases. But one of those overdose deaths was a methamphetamine and methadone overdose, which you don't normally see. And I'm not sure for anybody who's in toxicology, the numbers for the meth and the methadone, completely opposite drugs. One's a stimulant, one's a opiate. Or around the 200 nanogram levels. That's huge. For instance, in Washington State, if you have 5 nanograms of THC, which is the chemical within marijuana, and your blood, you're presumed to be impaired to drive. And this individual died of 200 plus nanograms.
Oh,
So very concerning. I don't know where they get that much methadone, also people are selling it. So something we're watching carefully. I don't really have any answers here other than we did sign up to be in the Leave Behind program. So whenever time we go to an overdose call where Narcan is used, I mean, we know that they're a drug user, we leave behind Narcan. It's a state grant program through the OJ. So and so we box them in here, and we supply fairly regular amounts. We've got on the gator and do homeless camp contacts. It's not all homeless people here. It is killing the last 3 of the last 4 deaths were homeless people. So
is there an age range?
the average age is around 35. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't checked it lately, but it's in the mid-30s. But all of the individual that died of the meth, he's in his 50s. And it was near the pool and over by the skate park and in Kendall Park. So it's where that last death occurred. So very, very concerning.
Do you have any numbers on how many of them might be vets?
No, that's probably a great question. Yeah. We track all sorts of demographics, age, gender, race. We keep getting told by our elected officials that if we increase criminal penalties for drug suppliers, we're only disproportionately punishing people of color by holding them accountable. And I'm like, well, the people who are dying of these overdoses are highly disproportionate and represented community, especially Native American. So I get real tired of that argument. So the big concern, again, I still see the biggest threat in the city is the overdoses, particularly fentanyl. Jerry Drum, one of my captains, and I are, if you didn't notice, we're a HIDTA county, sometimes HIDTA is high intensive drug trafficking areas, what that stands for. We have a narcotics task force here that's a combination of agencies. And I sit on the chair of the Oregon Idaho HIDTA. It's the organization that oversees that. And then in about 3 or 4 weeks, Jerry Drum and I are going down to San Diego to do tunnel tours, smuggling tunnel tours, and at the border crossing. So it's all coming up through most of our southern border, some through Canada, all originates in China. So again, that's a big area of concern. As far as our hiring, we're still doing good. I think I told you in June, we were gonna be fully staffed by the end of the month, and we were fully staffed for 14 days. And then we had a retirement, Ken Patton retired. We added the position in the budget, and then I lost an officer who wasn't gonna make it through field training, so back up. But the good news is we have such a great reputation out there, thank you to TikTok, that we had a female officer who works in Washington State walk in our doors and say, I really want to move down here, and she wanted to ride along, and she'll be hired October 1st. So that's awesome.
Wow.
As a lateral, or is it?
Kind of a lot, she did 3 years, so, but she's worked at 2 agencies, stellar, both agencies, yeah, you really be lucky to have her. She looked at us and forgot us and said for this. So,
No, tell us about TikTok. I mean,
have you not seen this?
I don't do TikTok, so
Yeah.
no.
So TikTok is another, it's kind of like it's a social media platform, we do cute little videos. It's controversial because it's owned by a Chinese company and run by, overseen by the Chinese government. And so there's some government privacy issues with it. But we had a good talk with FBI, as long as we're not putting that app on a device that has criminal justice information, we should be okay. But they'll look at your browser history. Yeah, it's pretty invasive. They all do it. If you ever notice, if you have Facebook, you start talking about something in a meeting or start talking about your drink there, it'll show up on Facebook. They spy on us all the time. This is concerning because it's controlled by the Chinese government. But so we started this, and we've done a couple. Well, we've done several videos, and one of which is 2 of which have Gina Bell, who's our new school resource officer in it, and one video was a Celine Dion. Some of you have seen it. Celine Dion lip sync where the patrol guys do this, and they have a leaf blower. It's a totally comedy thing. Take a stab at how many times they do.
Okay, then.
Any guesses? 45 million.
Oh my.
And we have 850,000 followers. We don't even have 60,000 people in the city, so it's a very good recruiting tool. And I interviewed 3 potential candidates yesterday. All of us they find this social media. So it's a great tool. It really makes it look human too. So
Yeah.
so for our hiring, again, we've hired 3 officers and 3 dispatchers. We have 1 dispatcher position left. That's to backfill for a position where dispatchers moving elsewhere in the department. We're not losing anybody because of something we're doing wrong. People are moving down different positions within the department that pay more money and more opportunity. And we had 1 person leave to be a stay-at-home mom. So again, 1 pending officer, that's the experienced officer. Actually, that should be 2 because I signed off on a initial offer today. So there should be 2, and then we're going to constantly chase that. And the nice thing about, and I think I mentioned last meeting, is Peter allows me to overhire. We have enough room in our budget to Dan Jones, who's one of our longtime sergeants, is retiring in April, actually end of March, and he put in his memo that allows us to use some of our existing salary savings to hire ahead of his departure. So that's really so
Nice.
and to reserve time for our later topic, I'll say I'm done and
Okay.
unless you have questions.
Chief, I
Yes,
guess
sir. Yeah.
one question. Wouldn't be I, as much as I appreciate how bad the numbers are in the overdose, I appreciate the way that that's a 5-year slice to compare things against. So the year-over-year stuff on the front page, I know you said the full spreadsheet is kind of a mess. But it'd be interesting to see like an average, like a rolling average, or to see a couple of years to compare against.
Yeah, it might be in the annual report that you have. If not, you do have a crime report on our website. It's PDF,
Okay.
and that will give you that
I'll spend more
snapshot.
time with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think there might be a snapshot in there, and I
I'll
can't
check over
remember.
here too.
And when Laura sends out our quarterly updates from the departments, usually we have a crime update there, but you can go into our website, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, I've played on the crime stat stuff before, I like that, so.
Yeah, it's so tricky. There's so many factors that play into it. And the way we report crime also has changed. 10 years ago, we might have been in something called UBR, now in NIBRS. So it's a different way the federal government has us to track things. UCR, I'm sorry, UCR was the first one, NIBRS is the third one.
Anybody else? Okay, Shane, you're on.
Okay, I'm also going to try brevity, knowing that you have other topics to discuss. So hopefully you should have my report. Let's hear, who all needs one?
Thank you.
Chief, I'll take a couple if you have any more there. Okay, so on the report, reporting out the total number of calls for fiscal year 23, we ended the year with 11,495 responses. So up from the previous year. And then right below that, I kind of just wanted to illustrate graphically the path that we're on and that we've been on with the increasing number of calls. And if you recall, we are in the process of hiring what are called single role employees. So they're not firefighters, they're just, they're either paramedics or EMTs. We went through a recruitment process last week. Very happy to report we had a lot of applicants and a lot of qualified applicants. So that was good news. Our people went through a recruitment process and they're this week going through the scores from everybody, tallying them up, making sure everything is correct. And then we'll start offering some jobs. But with that trajectory, the folks that we're hiring will only be staffing an additional ambulance during the daytime. And as you can see with that graph, while that might, that's going to help now, it's going to be probably a continued message from myself that, we need to be planning to the future. We need to be thinking about how are we going to find additional spots to keep more ambulances on the road. Our response times, thankfully, with the increase in calls, as you can see, have remained relatively flat. So that's good. I attribute that to our people hustling, getting out the door and having what we call situational awareness, that if you're out on a call and there's 2 units and you hear something else happen that maybe is in your district, that they're aware enough to break away and spread themselves out, if you will. On the back side are the top 50 calls for fiscal year 23. And as I was looking through them, there, within the top 10, there's, a little bit of variation. But really our top 10 calls essentially stay the same. Lift assist, I was happy that we didn't have a larger increase. We were working really hard to try to lower that number. I just actually spent some time on the phone with a gentleman yesterday who he and his brother, it's just a really sad situation, but they live alone, they need additional care, but they called us 42 times last year. And to help them up. And so that's the community paramedics' job, to get in there and to work with them, but they have to be receptive to what she's offering. So we unfortunately have the ability to bill people if we think that they are using our services inappropriately. So this will be the first instance that we have threatened that. In the 5-6 years that we've had it on the books, we told the council at the time, we don't want to use this, but we need something to motivate people to get the care that they need. So we're working through that with those 2 brothers. So I don't have the exact data like Chief does regarding our overdoses, because our overdoses, they can range anywhere from a child getting into some Tylenol to a fentanyl overdose. But it's worth noting that in fiscal year 21, we had 127 dispatched ODs, and we had 242 in fiscal year 23. So, it's double just over 2 years. Cardiac respiratory arrest, I wanted to point that one out to you because one of our department goals is to increase survivability from cardiac arrest. And we have lots of things on the medical side that we're working on with automated CPR devices. We're always evaluating our protocols, making sure we're giving medications and treatments meet the current standards. But we had an idea of a challenge coin for folks that every time they're a part of a cardiac arrest where somebody is discharged from the hospital, we're going to give that crew a challenge coin. And we thought it would be kind of cool, especially for someone who's towards the end of their career, to look back and see a stack of coins that, and knowing each coin that you received is somebody's life that you saved. So that is what the coin looks like. And I'm just waiting for our credit cards to work again after August 4th. We had a little snafu in finance citywide. Yep. So I'll wait until after August 4th to order those, and we'll start giving them out. Let's see here, structure fires, relatively flat, given the overall number. Burn complaints I wanted to point out because for some of you who are on this commission a few years ago, I talked about how burn complaints is something that people call 911 for. Almost all the time, it's a neighbor dispute. And it's actually even a regulation that isn't in our authority. It's actually a DEQ regulation. And so what we as Lynn County Fire Chiefs got together and talked about, that is we don't have the capacity to do DEQ's work as far as the enforcement piece. We will go out on burn complaints when it's summertime, like right now. If somebody called and complained about somebody burning, we're there. If it's January 15th and it's been raining, that is a smoke issue and that's a DEQ issue. So we've worked with Lynn County Dispatch that when people call, they're actually referred to DEQ to file a complaint against their neighbor rather than taking $1 million fire truck and 3 personnel and us responding. So that has been, knock on wood, really successful for the county and especially for us, seeing that decline. Because, part of, our service is, there used to be a day when we would tell people to call 911 for me. But with limited resources, we have to start educating people on the proper time to call 911 and what we are able to do, what our capabilities are. And so that I think is a really good example of folks working together to make that happen. And then just some side note items. Since we've last met, we've been on 3 conflagrations. And the conflagration is when we go to an area outside of Lynn County to help them, and all of our costs are reimbursed by the state. Thank you very much. And so we've responded so far this year to Hermiston, to the Hat Rock fire. We sent resources to the Moon Mountain fire, which was South Eugene. What's exciting about that is, and bravo to the State Fire Marshal's office for being as involved as they are. But if we have a fire here in our community that we think is going to be lasting a while, over multiple operating periods or into the next operating period, the state will mobilize a task force of fire trucks. So 5 fire trucks is a task force. And we can use them for a day or 2 without it being a conflagration. So, for example, the fire yesterday in Sotaville, if some of you knew, as Fire Defense Board Chief, Lynn County Fire Defense Board Chief, we start the process of reaching out to the State Fire Marshal's office saying, I think we're going to have an extended incident. And to get the ball rolling on having additional resources outside of this geographic area come and help. Thankfully, the fire yesterday, the Department of Forestry really, well, they jumped on it because it was contiguous to some of their protected grounds. And so when that happens, they bring in some air assets and allow us firefighters to get pretty aggressive putting the fire out. And then we went down to the Golden Fire in Bonanza, Oregon, which is outside of Klamath Falls. So, and then lastly, I'll say we've had our two fundraisers, or we've had two fundraisers since we've last met. We were the recipient of the our nonprofit Albany Firefighter Community Assistance Fund, which hopefully when you have the discussion on guest speakers, I'd love to have somebody from AFCAF, one of our folks, come in and talk about it. But our nonprofit received $3,483 from the North Albany Roundup.
Who won that tournament?
What's that?
Who won that tournament?
Oh, the Roundup was in a tournament.
Or the golf tournament,
Who did win it?
please?
Okay, okay, so you jumped the gun, you jumped the gun. Because the next fundraiser is also a win for AFCAF. And that was our annual Rick Rebel Memorial Golf Tournament.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yes. And so in that golf tournament, we normally shoot for 20 teams and we had 29. So ran out of golf carts, ran out of food. But everybody was really pleasant about that. So that was great. So really pleasant surprise, lots of involvement. We made $10,487.
Oh, that's
The APD as usual, bring in a bunch of winners.
Well, actually, so
And Robert Hayes.
yeah, so I'm trying to get into golf and Brad Lyles is like really, really good.
His son was junior pro. And I think he probably plays like 36 rounds a day or something.
They used to bring in, used to have a couple pro players that kind of weren't,
Yeah, I think they're two non-AP people, but Robert and Brad are really good at golf.
Yeah, there. And with that, we do have one more fundraiser on September 20th. We have our public safety cornhole tournament. And that tournament we limit to just 20 public safety teams. It's $100 a team. One of our firefighters built all the cornhole equipment. And that is really an easy fundraiser for us because 20 teams, $100. You have that initial capital outlay and you go get some people to donate some items for gifts. And that one is actually won by Public Works.
Oh, they have a ringer team.
They have a ringer team that they reached out to us and asked, like, what rules are we following? And they rattled off. And we honestly just kind of got the idea going, just a fun time to have an adult beverage and play cornhole and make some money for a good cause, but they ended up winning. So good for them. They won a Yeti cooler last year. So, end of report.
Okay. Business from the members, but before we do that, I want to follow up on something from the last meeting. We had talked about submitting ideas for speakers. I never got an email from anybody.
I realized yesterday that I didn't send anything. So
Nothing.
sorry about that.
So my question is, Shane, could you arrange for Sandy Roberts to speak with us?
About what, AFCAF, our community involvement,
Community
or all of the
involvement.
above?
Well, all of the above if she's willing, but
Yes.
you know,
Yep.
specifically community involvement. And a lot of it is like some of the services they offer to seniors that a lot of people are aware of, like the lock boxes and so forth. So I would appreciate that. Thank you. And my mailbox is still open. So send me any ideas you have.
Chair, can I ask a quick question? I just want to go back to Chief report for a second, if I may. And Chief Herndon, this maybe applies to you as well. Looking at the number of incidents, it occurs to me that the population of Albany's probably grown in that 10 years, probably hasn't doubled. So I don't think that's the straight cause of what's going on there. But is do you think the calls are growing out of proportion to the population of the city, and where is that coming from? If that's the case, like, is that a reporting issue, as you're talking about, Chief? Or-
So I'll jump in. A couple obvious items to me. Yes, it will, our community or the number of calls will increase as our community grows. And I think that can easily be explained with these little jumps of, 200-300 calls a year.
Sure.
When you get into some larger increases, one of the biggest drivers of that is when, in our community, when we build an assisted living facility.
Sure.
So our general rule is for every bed in an assisted living facility, that's going to generate at least one call a year. So, when you get, a place like Bonaventure, which might have been 2019, don't quote me on that, but you get a facility like that with 300 beds coming in, that's going to be 300 additional calls for us for that year. So that's something that, as the community talks about growth, we have to be mindful of, not only with assisted living facilities, but with any sort of growth. What sort of demand is that going to put on public services? Why I believe that these small increases are associated to growth is seldom the ODs, that's clearly, there's a jump. Generally, it's all of our calls going up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so no single one item stands out. So, yes.
I would say population, a couple factors. Population is a big one. One of our strategic goals for 24 and 25 is the substation east of I-5. It is incredibly difficult to get across town some afternoons. And our number one address for police services in the city is Walmart.
Yeah.
So, we are very dependent on our body cams and in-car video. And so they use those body cams to take statements and things like that. And they download those when they get to the station and then play them. In fact, if you did the tour, you'll probably see them with headphones on. They play the videos, stop, write their reports. Well, as it exists right now, the only way to download is come all the way back here. And so Shane doesn't know this yet, but I'm gonna have a conversation about a temporary house at the fire station up there on 3 Lakes. We did have access before, but we've got to put IT infrastructure there to make that happen. We have to upgrade our body cam and in-car video to the tune of about 80,000. And in that, we'll budget some infrastructure for somewhere east of or near I-5 to cut down on that response time and keep resources that way.
And so that's a response time sort of thing, and certainly a personnel time issue. I can see that
Yeah.
for sure, but you don't think that affects the number of calls, or does it?
Well, I would say population is affecting the number of calls. I was talking to the mayor last night, National Night Out, and if I would be highly surprised, probably all buying a whole beverage, if we don't hit 60,000 the next census,
Yep.
which is a huge jump. And if you looked at we went and looked at all the apartment complexes going off Knox View and down south, we will hit 60,000. And then, I don't know if I told this group before, but the national average of officers per 1,000 is like 1.2, 1.4. Don't quote me on that, but it's in the ones. We're 0.8. So we're really low.
So just along that question, do you notice a difference in the amount of calls, not by population, but by the housing type? So where you have denser housing, are you seeing a higher, I imagine we're seeing a higher propensity for calls in those areas?
And
Based
multifamily.
on
Yeah,
multifamily, based
will-
on population, if you're looking at just a population base, you're probably at a higher percentage of calls.
Yeah, if we were to break it down based on number of people per block, we
Yeah.
probably would see that. That's some wicked math right there. But I do know as we talk about growth, particularly in the South End, because they're talking about putting some commercial retail infrastructure on the south end of the city, that will drain resources as well. Yeah, we need it. Because if you look at the impacts of what addresses we go to the most, it's all of our big retailers.
Yeah.
So, and as a city grows, so does that. But I would agree with Kevin that you have to look at multifamily, things like that. So, and if you look at our calls, there's a jump, 15% jump for this year to date last year to year to date this year. We were actually going the opposite direction for a couple of years. Part of that was COVID, but now we're going the opposite. The biggest jump is self-initiated calls, which tells me our staffing is good and we're out to search for bad guys. So, but that's something we have to look at. And I can tell you all day long, in fact, I was coming to work, and it's 25 minutes till the end of shift. For the shift, there's a big disturbance out of polls, which these guys are at the end of their 12-hour day and they haven't got polls in the other disturbance. So they're helping it during the day to polls.
Absolutely.
I had one follow-up to last week, and I was wondering how the new homeless camps are doing.
Yeah, we went through, we've got to make some tweaks at the car one, the not following the rules there. But so far so good. And God bless Chance, because they have been fantastic. We're having difficulty. Part of our processes was to use the Lynn County Sheriff's I'm sorry,
Their storyteller.
no, not the storage area, but the work group.
Okay.
To come in and do a once a week trash pickup, because there's a dumpster there that public services comes and dumps, but we're having some challenges with the sheriff's office. And but Chance, there are organizations out there almost every day, and they always pick up garbage. So that's good. We've kicked 3 people out of there, 2 for drug dealing, 1 was just completely so mentally unstable that we're making them safe. So we had to remove them, but also try to get them resources. And I encourage you to drive by. The corner lot with the tents, we have a code of conduct that they have to follow. The vehicle one to the north is a little bit more of a challenge. We've got a couple RVs in there and stuff like that. We're going to have to do something with that. And then 2 individuals that basically took over the whole corner. But so far so good, nothing major, but and then our service organizations, they're the ones who let us know who's doing drugs and who's not, because we're trying to help people there, and that's all we need to figure out. That legally allows us to deal with everybody else in the other spaces. So we just send them up.
So the question for you, do you have any way of tracking any potential what impacts with changes in state law have been with regards to the call and the measures?
Are you talking about Measure 110 and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we saw our drug crimes drop off dramatically. In fact, the possession of methamphetamine was always in Doug Martini's top
Right.
1 to 3 as far as crimes. Now it disappeared, but now it creeped back up in the top 10 because we're seeing quantities high enough that we're charging people. And if you look at our society numbers, I think it's the drug laws, we've almost doubled since last year. So, because we're seeing such an epidemic of usage. In fact, I got a call from a certain fire chief yesterday who they were observing some guy shooting up right outside the fire station. And then our ability to do anything with that is very limited. If not.
Well, how about, because on the property crime side, I don't know, I know California cities, as soon as they relaxed, they went through the roof.
Yep.
And, because they know exactly what they could go in and do, and they know they're gonna, they were getting out before the officers finished their report.
Well, and we have retailers, so don't go running them up or anything, but some of our bigger box stores, particularly hardware stores, will not stop shop workers anymore. You walk with one of our staffers saw a non-sworn staffer saw some guy walk right out the door with a bunch of power tools, and they said, yeah, we saw him. We're going to try to get played with them, and that we're all paying for that.
Yep.
So, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
But they're so liability conscious that they don't stop. And it just shifts. We we clamped down on catalytic converter thefts and went after those people, now we're on to something else. So I agree with you, property crime, we're gonna see that correlation.
Okay, moving on to business from the members, the Pride Parade discussion. Tom Cordier contacted me last week and wanted to share with me some of his feelings about the Pride Parade and how public safety dealt with it. And he asked me to bring it to the commission, and I talked to Marcia and Shane, and they both felt that it was appropriate to have a discussion. And I had the diagram you have is what he drew for me so that you could see his areas of concern. And I'd like Marcia to kind of discuss how the parade went and what the concerns were and how that might play into that.
Yeah, and I would like to mention, Tom has never made a phone call to me. And you.
I seem to be the middleman.
Talked to Shane and Cynthia, but apparently he doesn't.
And Peter.
Say,
And
and he called Peter.
He called Peter.
So, Eric Crowe is very familiar because he was in the planning of this. So we have not done an official debrief of that incident. We need to. But we would all recommend that we need to make some changes, and I would agree with Tom on this map. This event is basically next door neighbor to Saturday Albany Farmers Market. And it is a permitted event. It's not a city-sponsored event. It's a private organization, got a special permit to occupy public spaces, which makes it a semi-private location. And that's very significant for dealing with protest type things. The city is using a city-sponsored event. And in this, the map actually is fairly accurate. There's barricades basically a little bit to the east of the corner of Broad Auburn and 4th. And then you move right into the Saturday Farmers Market. As you now are aware, we had the governor speaking. And about an hour or so after that, we had protesters show up that were not even from Albany or from Medford or something.
Oh, they're from Grants Pass.
Grants Pass, Somerville. Very clear signs that they were opposed to what was going on at the location. We had a plan in place on how to deal with this. First Amendment protections have to stay in place. So as long as someone's not threatening anybody, they're not using bias-related type stuff, et cetera, if they're outside the permitted space, they can stay there. Well, the Pride revelers weren't too happy about that. We got complaints on both sides. They went and surrounded these people, and there were some words exchanged, but no pushing, shoving. People got too close at times, and on both sides, we probably warned more with the Pride folks than the other folks because they're used to doing these type of events. And Tom came to talk to me at that event. He said, well, they are blocking their signs. And I said, well, I can read all their signs. So unless there's a violence or disorderly conduct or harassment, something going on, they're both exercising their First Amendment right. And the only people, a civic lesson of the day, the only people who can violate your First Amendment rights is the government. So other protesters violating their First Amendment rights, that is not a violation. But we were monitoring, we had 6 or 7 officers right there, would step in and deal with. So the Pride event had a sound permit, the protesters did not. So when they tried to amplify, we dealt with that. When some of the Pride folks got a little too, they can't block your movement. So we would ask Keith, I don't know, Eric, if you went over there, but
Yeah.
Keith Calco, the organizer, would go over and tell the people that were there for the Pride event, do not touch, do not harass, do not assault, just stand there and do, exercise your First Amendment right. A couple people had to be warned by us on the Pride side. And we had one person from the group of protesters enter the site and was handing out pamphlets that had a picture of a disemboweled baby on it. and it was saying things to the people involved in the party event that was being everybody spun up. Eric was there, Keith was there. We cannot kick them out. The organizers have to say, we don't want you here. You have to leave. This is our permitted space. And until they do that and the person refuses, there's not a police action. They did that, they refused to leave, so officer stepped in and said, you were fine over on the other side on the or on the Saturday market side, but you're not allowed over here, and they moved back. The overall concerns, we never wanted violence. This was a permitted event. We treat it very similar to what we would do with a block party, that kind of thing. To have it done over with, and we'll talk about this when we do it after action, is that we'll never allow the border of the permitted space that close to where we might have a dignitary speaking, because all sorts of things could have gone wrong with the government. She probably would not have come out if those guys were already there. They weren't. Other than that, we didn't have any other issues surrounding it, but the one thing, and probably the only thing I'll agree with Tom on, is that border there where the conflict zone was will be moved farther back. So those protesters can come and exercise their First Amendment right, but they won't get that close to the major event space, which is the stage.
So is there any prohibition? And this is one of the questions Tom asked me. Is there any prohibition for anyone to join the parade, whether they're a protester or not? I mean, the paraded area, the permitted area.
Anybody can walk through, including Tom walked through. Anybody walk through, as long as they don't try to disturb the event, which that one protester tried to do.
Okay. Because his issue was that he felt that preventative medicine and policing was better than reactive.
By that, but
Well, he felt that those protesters should have been, there should have been some kind of provision made for protesters where they were not that they were put under control, but that problems were anticipated and dealt with before they happened. Well, I said, how do you deal with the problem before it happens, Tom?
we have, again, we probably had 10, 12 officers on the perimeter of that space. When this issue popped up, I would say the vast majority of us, including me, because I was going to leave well before that, including me, stayed there to make sure it didn't happen.
And there were probably more officers than there were protesters, weren't there? 'Cause I think there were only 6.
No, at one point there were more protesters.
Were there?
Yeah, they ended up spreading out and they said their piece and left. There's a couple of core groups that were handing out pamphlets and stuff around. Some of them went out to the corner of 4th and.
Can we have, thinking of going to the Grand Canyon and seeing designated protest areas? Is that something that?
They won't follow it. If
Okay.
it's outside the special permit area, they're gonna go where they go.
Okay.
The biggest thing is, to prevent any violence is, the core entertainment was right there at the front of the courthouse, is to expand that border out so that they don't, there's not a chance to interrupt the event, and then the other people feel that they can have their say.
Well, Tom just wanted to bring it up and have a discussion, and we've done that. So unless anybody has any more to say, I think we've met that requirement. Okay.
So just a question,
Uh-huh.
whether it's this event or any event where you expect, where they're asking, someone's asking for a permit, so like if the crowd was, if you have a group like that come in and ask for something where there's going to be likely, the potential for conflict. When that's taken into consideration, do groups have to pay for that additional, because if we start having a lot of those groups coming in, regardless of who they are, regardless of the size, but requiring a larger law enforcement presence, how is that dealt with? Do they have to, is there a point that, we're going to do, because, like Veterans Day parade, we don't have a huge,
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, is there a provision where if that happens, that they have to, someone has to pay for that coverage, or the citizens covering that cost? If we always had groups want to start coming in that, or there's going to there's going to be conflict regardless of who it is.
Well, and I know they have staffed because we were not where the governor was gonna be there. And we did slightly, we already had a SWAT team there anyway, so, and I know OSP has a pretty good plan, but in this case, most of our special events, so River Rhythms, the Veterans Day Parade, this event, we don't get any reimbursement off the permit fees.
Right.
Where we get it is TLT funds.
Yeah.
So if I know, as we're building the budget, and I know that now we've added the block party on Labor Day weekend, and that's gonna draw like 10 officers. We're going to, when we go to budget that, we'll go back to community development and say, hey, we took in the shorts on this. We're gonna ask for more TLT funds coming up.
I guess my question is, because you said whether it's a city sponsored event or not city sponsored. So I guess that's where I was asking, if you have someone coming in and doing those that are asking for it, which is, like you said, it's a semi-private, in that situation, if it's requiring, whether it's, even if it's a concert, if someone wants to come in and do a private concert, bringing in a big metal band or something, it's gonna be just stuff, and, it's gonna have an impact on fire, it's gonna have an impact on police. It's not a city-sponsored event. Is there a way that as part of that, is there anything set up where the city can say, yeah, you can come in, but if you're gonna, if it's gonna do this, you have to cover those costs.
Yeah, I don't know. Shane's been here longer
I
than
don't
me.
recall us doing that, or
Well, I
really
don't recall
having
us ever
them
having
even
it.
the mechanism to do it. We sometimes will get, the fire department will get requests from, people with their company picnics or wanting us to do standby, and we can't commit to that. They can, we'll offer them that they can, at the state rate, we can hire people back and reimburse us for costs, but generally it's cost prohibitive.
I know early on when the amphitheater first went, there were actually parks, and so parks was actually looking at contracting with some of the companies to go, do like the origin stuff. There's companies that are doing something. And I know there's discussion then about who would be paying for the additional coverage. But outside of that,
Not an Albany example, but an example of that kind of thing. During the solar eclipse in 2017, I think it was Kirk County had a private forest land that put in a huge festival in the middle of that, and we permitted it for 25,000 to 30,000 people to start with. And the Kirk County commissioner said, all right, well, if you're gonna do that, you gotta have a water source, you gotta have your own EMS on contract, you gotta have communications brought in, sanitation, all that stuff. And that event kept going bigger and bigger for the permit, and the county commissioners kept adding to that. So, I mean, that's a different level of event, but it's a reasonable question.
it just brought back questions,
Yeah.
knowing what,
I think it can be done in my former life. We put on the 4th of July event and brought in 50,000 people to
Yeah.
downtown Bellevue, and then we were up during holidays. They do between Black Friday and Christmas Eve, they do a nightly Christmas parade. Where they shut down, they do music and dancing and fix snow. And that was, we were completely reversed for that. The police department was, you're talking
Well,
about
we did.
15.
We used to have a timber carnival.
Yeah.
Timber carnival, both police and fire had, there was fun, and we budgeted for that upstep. We always knew it was. I'm just curious more on if someone, thinking about that, if someone want to come in and we'll, now that, especially once stuff's done, someone want to come in and do a private concert, do a concert, it's gonna bring in a lot of people. It's already tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the way the city looks at it, and we're kind of talking about how we're going to do next 4th of July today. I mean, because that 4th of July falls on at River Rhythms night. And there'll be a fireworks display at River Rhythms next year over the river. And we'll have to most definitely have staff for that. But we when we do events for OSHU, they reimburse us. We charge them for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, most entities, River Rhythms runs on a very tight budget. And so I don't know how we would do that. The block party, if that continues to grow, we might have to look at something with that. Because they still take us.
I know it has an impact on resources.
And part of it too, from the fire department's perspective, if we look at it, if it's a nonprofit or if it's a for-profit. So, if a for-profit concert were to go off, we would ask for reimbursement. The taxpayer should support that. And some kind of a non-Albany topic, but the now defunct Country Music Festival. That was an example of Lynn County Fire Department's charging them to do standby and have resources there.
Oh, something's coming back this year. We have to work it with Sweet Home.
Pardon me?
Something's coming back this year to work out with Sweet Home.
The Sweet Home, I know, has their jamboree
Yeah.
this
yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, any other business to come for us? If not, we are adjourned. And thank you for doing the report. I'm gonna enjoy perusing. it.
Yeah, I started in the copies. If you want a hard copy,